That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to the Show Up Podcast. My name is Calvin Noel, and my whole life I've been working to show up.
You have great potential.
Show up for my friendships, show up for my family, show up for my health, and show up for my future. Showing up means looking at what's happening in life and navigating through what I can do to make it better.
Keep your focus.
Make it better. Make it more meaningful and make a difference, not only for me, but for everyone around me.
The people who really care for you are rooting for your rise.
I'm still a work in progress.
All I gotta do is show up, show up.
But I'm gonna get there.
Brave enough to try again this time.
This podcast offers advice from experts who know how to take the next step to help you reach your full potential. Thanks for hanging out with me. Now let's show up. So here we are today with none other, my good friend, Michael W. Smith. How you doing?
Calvin. Good to
I'm
be,
not
good,
know why
it's
I'm
good,
feeling nervous. You're in my
uh,
studio. You're in my house. I can't believe this. I really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.
Thank you. I'm really excited about today's episode because today's episode is called Surrounded by Worship. And the reason why I called it Surrounded by Worship is because over the last 3 months, I've been kind of feeling, like a shift in what God is doing in my life, from doing the marketing business to picking up the mantle again of singing and that calling. And, you called me to be a part of your upcoming worship album, Surrounded. And first of all, if I've never told you, it really, really changed the game for me. One, because I was in a season of, Lord, what are you wanting to do? But secondly, I remember on the night of the recording, it was so epic. And I want to talk about that night a little bit later. But for those that are listening or watching, some people know who you are. A lot of people know who you are, but then there may be some people that don't. So can you just tell us a little bit of background of how you got into music and how long you've been doing this?
Well, I've been doing it for a while, and I don't expect everybody to know who I am.
That's right.
A long story made very short. I grew up in West Virginia and wanted to be a professional baseball player, but I was playing music. And
You play baseball?
I played baseball.
Michael, I didn't know that.
I did.
Okay.
So, my dad was a great ball player, and I thought I was going to play for the Cincinnati Reds, and that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So, but 15 years old, knew music was going to be the part of the fabric of my life, and I ended up moving to Nashville 5 years later, and got a songwriting contract at some point. Started writing songs for Amy Grant and for her Age to Age record, which was a long time ago, and then got my first record deal. In 1982, actually, Mike Blanton and Dan Harrell, who were managing Amy, nobody would give me a deal, so they went and borrowed some money from a bank and started Reunion Records.
Oh, wow.
And Kathy Dracoli and myself were the first artists on that
I
label.
remember Reunion Records.
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Back in the day. And, I'm not going to talk about accolades and any of that stuff. It's just been, I pinch myself every morning. I wake up, I'm going, I can't believe this is 35 years, going on 36 years since that first contract, and writing songs all these years. And now that you're, that you want to kind of focus on the worship thing, I decided to do this worship album in 2001. And
that's where I first met you.
It probably was 2001.
It was that because I remember getting a call from Leanne Palmore, and I just moved to Nashville, and she's like, "Hey, Michael W. needs, some singers for this live video recording in Canada." Yeah. And I was like, oh no, oh my gosh. And I was really excited, but I remember something that year. What made you decide to do it? The first worship record. What was your motivation in that?
It was all because of a GMA event.
Okay.
When you used to have Gospel Music Week, it used to be held in Nashville. It's a long story too, but the short story is, just to cut to the chase, is that I think there was just some sentiment of going, I think we've sort of lost our way a little bit, and the whole celebrity thing and just the whole big competitiveness and just, and I always had to watch myself because I got caught up in it. And then at some point, somebody, because I've been leading worship at Belmont Church since 1982 or 83.
Wow. See, I don't think a lot of people know that.
I led worship for 18 years before I ever did a vertical record.
Wow.
So, another long story short, I got a call from somebody, and I wish I knew exactly who it was. I'll I'll remember here shortly. But saying, hey, we have a crazy idea. We would love to start off GMA week with a worship service that we feel like would sort of set the tone, sort of get us focused on what this thing is really about.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I would love to do that. I said, will you let me drive it, because I've got this crazy wild idea.
And that, for people that don't know, you say crazy wild idea a lot. That means
people usually run.
That means point. Like God is maybe downloading something into you.
Well,
probably. You would hope.
I would hope.
Yeah,
and I think this was a God thing, because I invited every artist to be in the choir and drop your ego at the door. If you have an ego, just drop it at the door. And we're all going to do this together. And we had 75 artists in the choir at the Ryman. And something happened that night.
Yeah.
You just felt like the roof was going to come off.
Yeah.
And it was powerful.
Wow.
So 3 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I just felt like the Lord was saying, for such a time as this. And I knew what he was saying, but I said no. I sort of wrestled with God on this one.
And why would you wrestle him?
Because I didn't want to capitalize on a worship experience. Basically, for such a time as this, he was going, I want you to make this record.
Yeah.
And so I just sort of, just didn't.
You had to yield.
I didn't respond. And then 3 weeks later, I got woke up again in the middle of the night for such a time as this. And I wrestled again, and I said no. And then the third time, 3 weeks later,
you said yes.
I said yes. And then we went to Lakeland, Florida, and we recorded this worship album. It had a bunch of artists come and show up to that, 10,000 people, and something happened that night.
So do you think that you did that, it was all out of obedience? It wasn't like the thing to do in your career, because you're known from pop music from back in the day, Friends and Friends Forever, all that stuff. And this was kind of like a new direction.
It was an obedience thing for sure.
Wow.
And I thought it would be the least successful record in my career, and I didn't care.
Wow.
Because I'm not known for that.
Right.
I think maybe one of the very few records, other than the Exodus project I did on Rocketown, now Agnus Dei is on the Go West Young Man record, which is 1990.
Right.
You know. So we did that record in the summer of 2001, and then this thing comes out on 9/11.
And I don't know, I moved to Nashville in 2001. That was when I moved to Nashville, and I came from the gospel world, more charismatic. And I knew that when I moved here that God wanted to do something with me different, didn't want me in the same environments. And so I started to visit predominantly white churches. And in doing that, I was introduced to this worship album, and it was like I think I can speak for a lot of people. It became a staple in my household, and I started to find out that it was a staple in every church. And I really seen the Lord use that first record, like From Forever, with, I was introduced to Chris Tomlin through that. And I know people were doing things, and you picked some of the more popular songs, but there was such an anointing on that record that it went on to do really well. Was it one of your better selling records? I don't know. Was it?
It was the biggest record.
The biggest record, yeah. So, God's
because it was an international record. It was like sung all around the world.
Yeah.
And
so then you followed up with, Worship Again and the Worship DVD, and then that's when I met you, and I came into the picture. And it was life-changing. And I got to tell you this. I've never told you this, and today is the day that I tell you this. But I will never forget, after we were live on stage, we went backstage, and you cried. And, Michael, being a new person in Nashville, I always knew that I feel very sensitive than most people. And I didn't know at that time, is it my instincts for worship? And I've seen you, the biggest thing that I've learned by worshiping with you on stage is that you weren't afraid to be vulnerable. Like, you were the person God used to show me that tears and vulnerability is strength. Mm-hmm. And I've never told you that, but like that was the thing. It wasn't the amount of people. It wasn't that. I would just say Michael it's his heart. Like it's the heart. And you'll be on stage and you'll just go, come on guys, let's go. And you back away from the mic and everybody's singing. You're not jockeying for, now listen to me. And I've never told you this, but like at the core of what God was doing as a worship leader, he used you as a foundation for me. And I think for a lot of people, and I appreciate you because you're very humble, and it's probably hard for interviews when people are giving you all these accolades, but I've talked to a lot of people, and the thing that we say is like, you're the godfather of worship music in this generation. And I just think you're just one of the forerunners. I think that you have been very good at keeping it simple. And I just see like the Lord, every time you do one of these projects, the Lord just really, really breathes on it. And how are you, 16, 17 years later, how are you reconciling, man, I have this big pop career. I do a lot of other things, movie, film scores, all this other stuff that you do. And then God just sends you a vision again for worship. Are you still, is it an easy obedience thing, or is it something that you still, wrestle with?
No, I don't wrestle with it anymore.
That's great.
Yeah.
You just say yes.
I'm just ready for the download,
So then I got to ask you this then. So since you're ready for the download, let's talk about Surrounded. So how did that even come about? What was brewing?
Well, I was already in the middle of making this pop record, which is called A Million Lights. And honestly, the thing that kicked it off was I went to Amos 5 and read that passage in Scripture.
And what is it?
And basically, this is the Smitty interpretation, but the message has a great,
right.
It's just powerful. Basically, God's a little ticked. And he's saying, that music that you're playing, just stop it. I'm sick of it. And he said, you know what I want? He said, I want justice to roll like a waterfall. And it literally threw me back against the wall. And I started going, well, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I knew right then that whatever I did forward, and not that I haven't done in the past, but what I would do forward in a bigger way than ever, is that justice has to come right alongside of worship. It has to.
Yeah.
It's no negotiations.
So
that happened, and then all of a sudden I just had this revelation. I thought, I think I'm going to release 2 records back-to-back weeks, which I thought I completely lost my mind.
Because that's not the norm.
It's not the norm.
People normally do one record.
It's never been done, other than I sort of remember when Future did it last year. He released 2 records back-to-back weeks, and I thought, that's really interesting. And they both went number 1. And you couldn't do that 5-10 years ago, and you certainly couldn't do it 20 years ago. I think you can do anything today.
Yeah, the game has changed.
The game has changed, and the rules have changed, and I didn't do it to please 2 different audiences. I really did it because I just felt like it was the right thing to do. But I had a specific vision. I think really spurred on from that passage in Amos. But this has got to be every tribe and every nation and every social class, and we've got to be unified, and it's got to look different. Yeah, and it's got to represent the church a little bigger than what we've done. We sort of, we've got our thing here, and we got our thing here, and we got our thing here, and it's like, well, I could do that. Yeah. And I've got to lead it, but I've got to figure out how to disappear in the middle of it. And so we're all going to be the worship team. Wow. And we're all going to sort of do this thing in the round. And so that was my crazy idea. So what made you pull the trigger? Because I remember that I got a call to do a session for Crashing Waves on your Million Lights album that's coming out. Yeah. And we were in the studio just doing BGVs for that one song. And then you took a break
and then you played Surrounded.
Yeah.
And who wrote Surrounded?
Alyssa Smith.
And she's a worship leader, right?
She's a worship leader, and at that point, I know that's out of Dallas.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as I know, and I've met her. She's a sweetheart, but she prophetically sort of just kind of came out of nowhere one Sunday morning.
And brother, let me tell you something. Let me tell y'all something right now.
I remember when I first played it.
When you first played that song for me in the studio, I was like, within 30 seconds, I was like, this is the new Let It Rain. Like, this is it. And I've been bleeding, biting my tongue, wanting to sing that song out because I was just like, man, this song is it. This is it. And I just remember being so passionate after you showed me that. And I was just like, man, I hope he does another worship record. I'm like, I didn't know if you were made a decision. I knew you talked about it, but I was like, Lord, I remember leaving there. I was like, this would be amazing. And so then fast forward, maybe 3 weeks later, I'll never forget it. I was like, oh, that's Michael W. Wonder what he want. And you said, hey, bro, I got a wild idea. And I was like, oh, shoot, I like wild ideas. And so you asked me to help you with this and bringing the people together and to lean on me to help you. And what was amazing is I'm like, well, first of all, you're Michael W. Smith, your team, everybody, they can call anybody and get someone to be a part. But you said something that was really different. You didn't want the traditional worship vibe and I wanted to, and I guess what I'm saying is you wasn't looking for the Nashville session singers. You weren't looking for the go-tos or who's hot and who's popular. Why did you decide to approach this one a little different than other things?
I didn't want it to be professional, although you're as professional as day is long. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't want it to be driven by
the names.
Yeah. I wanted to try to make it nameless. And obviously there's some people in there like yourself that have credibility and all that sort of thing. But that was not the goal. The goal was to sort of just get, like I kept thinking, if I could walk into God's house, what would God's house look like?
That's great.
And I'd like to pull all those people out of God's house and let them come to the factory and be a part of the deal, And I knew it had to be diverse, as well. And
I just want to stop and appreciate you and thank you for that, because being an African American male traveling to predominantly white churches or being involved in the CCM industry, it's just been a really, really huge gap. And there's a difference, and I heard my friend Nikki say this, there's a difference between consideration and quotas. Yeah. Quotas is like, let's get some black people, let's get some Asians, but consideration is, hey, I just want to consider you to be a part. And I really believe that that's what you did for me. Is from day one, it wasn't like, hey, we wrote these songs, now let's go get some black people, let's go get some Hispanics, and let's just, color it up. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing new projects out in the industry that are coming out that are just, it's geared towards certain things. And this is me talking. I can still see the business side. Which is totally fine. It's the gospel, and I praise God for that. But this to me was different because I felt like you called and asked at the beginning. And the thing that people may not ever know about this record is I remember getting the call for the first one from Leanne. I just moved to Nashville. Mm-hmm. I was a David in the field. Mm-hmm. And I found like the Lord had found me, and I'm like 6 months into Nashville, and my first background vocal gig was with you. Privately, it blew me away. I remember how that felt, and I just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play that forward and find the Davids. And, I've been able to travel to different churches, and I just knew that there are people that are serving their church, and that's all they care about. They love God. They love people. Mm-hmm. They're talented, but there's a lot of people that aren't going to play this industry game
Right.
And so what did you think of just the team of people? Not me. I'm talking more about the other people, even the players you got. What did you feel about the dynamics of this whole group for this project?
Well, it just felt right.
Yeah.
There were some people that were supposed to be there that didn't come at the last minute, and we had to make some changes, and that was all a God thing.
Yeah.
I mean, from Otto.
Yes. Dude.
That was
Can we talk about Otto?
That's a whole miracle in itself.
Unbelievable.
And just so we held on to this. For me, just putting this thing together, I felt like I was holding on to it lightly.
Yeah.
And then you really felt like God was sort of orchestrating all of this.
Yeah.
Even venue, and we're supposed to be at Rocketown, and maybe we're supposed to be in the back thing. I mean, everything, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just believe I don't believe in coincidence. And
now I got to ask you this. How do you, because I want to do a worship album live recording, how do you coordinate the sonic piece of it? Like, for instance, Paul Mabry, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But like, this sounds a little more aggressive than other stuff. Like, is there a reason was this an intentional thought? Because it really, to me, it sits kind of where all people can access. Like, there's an on-ramp to this one.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of intentionality in how you produced the music side of it? Like, it's still straightforward, but like, there's elements with Otto and Paul that just really bring it to life.
No, I think the musicianship is off the chart.
Yeah,
and and I have to take very little credit. I mean, I co-produced this record, but kudos to Kyle Lee.
Absolutely, he's amazing, and
he sonically, it just is massive.
Yeah.
But it's not intrusive. It's not distracting to me. I mean, the drums are huge. The bass is huge. And it's like, wow, man, it's massive. But it sits well.
It sits well. I get calls from black people. They're just like, this is how I fight my battles. They're just going on. And I think it's a great song. But what also is great is that it sonically sits, with the drums and the bass. And I just didn't know. Like, you're very intentional musically. Like, I was talking to someone the other day about how do you come up with music? Like, you let things sit, or you place things in the proper way. Is that like something that you really think a lot about, intentionality in music?
I think about that more than anything.
Really?
I think about the flow. Obviously, you got to think about the songs. What are the songs? But how's this thing going to flow? And then my big thing, I'm just a stickler to this kind of thing, is you got to create space.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that?
Just like be still and know that I'm God. Hello.
Yeah.
Just like we're always trying to fill the gap.
Yeah.
Because if you don't fill the gap, then all of a sudden, I'm not in control.
Right. Totally.
And everybody wants to be in control. And so to me, this whole thing holds together from beginning to end. A little over 70 minutes. And honestly, the whole thing is just it's the promises of God.
Yeah, totally.
Just reminding you the promises of God, whether it's King of My Heart or Reckless Love.
Yeah. So it's like a warfare record.
It's a warfare record is what it is.
Yeah.
It really is that. But there's some of these songs where you just sang something and you're just going, wow, and then we create space. And a lot of it's just an atmospheric thing that maybe sits there for 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we transition into the next. It's almost like you got a chance of going, okay, oh my gosh, what just happened to my heart?
Yes, exactly.
And now I'm ready to move on to the next heart-changing song.
Totally,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So it's that kind of thing of just knowing how to flow. Flow is a big thing for me.
Now, to segue into this question, what do you think is missing in the church right now? Because you're talking about the sonic part, you're talking about creating space and to be able to allow your heart to soak in it. What do you think is missing in the church right now as it relates to worship? Uh-oh.
Well, oh, you know what? I have to be careful because I don't want to be judgmental, you know? I think, honestly, I think the big thing is we all have our cliques.
Right.
And I think we compare ourselves, which
Right.
I've been guilty of.
Yes, me too.
It's one of my goals is I'm not going to do that. One of my greatest goals in life is I'll never be offended by anyone ever again.
Mm.
But how do we root for each other? And at the end of the day, you're going, guys, we're in this together.
Right.
But the business part of it, and even people in the business part driving
Totally.
this whole thing that I feel like is, I'm not completely convinced is pure
Right.
all the way. Again, I'm not.
Yes,
pointing a finger at
I'm
everybody.
with you. I'm with you.
But there's this competitive thing
yes.
that is unhealthy.
And I got to just interject on that because it really feels like there's a game that a lot of people don't know. There's a game behind the scenes that you have to play this game.
Yeah.
And I think I'm being vulnerable. I'm really fed up with it. And I run from that.
Mm-hmm.
I run from that call of worship because it's like, well, I'm not trying to, I just want to do this purely. But in order to be received, you got to play this game. And I'm sick of it. And so do you think that that's the game piece has found its way into just the local churches where the heart of worship is kind of lost, globally? Or do you feel like it's progressing good? I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure it's progressing good
Yeah.
on some level. I mean, there's a lot of great things happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just think we have to be really careful
Yeah.
and mindful and not lose our way, And you know what? We have to be the little man. We have, if you want God to really use you and do something powerful, we have to be small.
Mm.
We have to be small.
That's
And
what
then
you would tell aspiring worship leaders?
take the back seat. Just serve your people and serve your band and your musicians and your team. Just serve them,
Now, how do people do that if they're starting out? It's 2018. Your heart is like, I want to be small. I want to serve. But I would love to make a living in this. And I don't know if there's people like me, but there's times where years ago, what I would go to one extreme and serve and not know how to cultivate the career part of it.
Right.
Do you have a way to balance those two? Or do you really feel like just keep serving and God will do it?
I think a little both. I think the hard part is there's probably some people who feel like they have the gift to lead and they probably don't.
Right.
And that's always difficult.
Yeah.
And even just as difficult as somebody who's really has the gift to lead but doesn't have the tools to know how to mature in that. And so, there's got to be some good training and all that sort of thing. Just trying to figure out how to help people know how to lead and lead well.
Yeah.
But I think leading well comes out of a place of servant, being a servant. And yeah,
So
it's tough. I always tell anybody who wants to be a singer, be a worship leader, what happened to me when I came to Nashville and I thought I'd written the greatest song of my life, and I took it in and played it for them, and they shot it down, and I got my feelings hurt, and because they didn't think it was great, and now that I look back on it, it wasn't. But I remember I walked outside and I stood on a corner, and I kind of got over it 5 minutes later, and I remember I just sort of looked up to the skies on 19th and Hayes at Paragon Benson Publishing Company, and I said, God, I really do think this is what you've called me to do. But if it's not, I'm willing for you to change my desire to do something else.
Really?
And I remember that night when I went to bed, I thought, dang, I can't believe I prayed that prayer. Because it was like, it was difficult because I sort of laid it out there going, well, gosh, maybe he's going to change my mind. Maybe I'm not destined for music.
Yeah.
Although I felt strong that I was, but I was going to lay it out going, hey, maybe you have something else for me.
Yeah.
I just encourage everybody to do that.
Yeah.
I
just did
no matter
that
how
real
strongly,
time.
no matter how strongly you feel about your gift, just going, God, show me the way. If this is what I'm supposed to do, then open up the door, teach me, let me be vulnerable, let me be humble. But if you want me to do something else, then I'll go do something else.
So moving forward with this record, I mean, what's your hope for this album or just this season? It's not even really about the album, because I know your heart is not about the business. It really is not about the business. And just knowing you personally, I know it's about being in God's will. Moving forward, what are you hoping to see in your life as it relates to worship, your career? You know, what's the future look like for someone like you? Like, it seems like you're at a deeper level spiritually. You've been in the industry for a long time. What's next?
Well, I don't know what's next. I know it's going to be busy. 2017 was awful.
Really?
I mean, I don't know anybody who would go, man, 2017 was incredible.
Yeah, not me. Not me.
And I'm not talking about just politics and I'm not
just life in general.
Just in this, the battles, some battles that the Smith family had, and we lost a good friend and killed in a tractor accident. And it just seemed there was just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And it was hard. But I think there's a shift.
Yeah.
I think there's a shift coming.
It's a shift.
And I think there's an outpouring coming. I really believe. I'm not just saying that. I'm just not here to blow smoke. But my greatest goal, other than just staying healthy spiritually and loving my family, which I'm blessed beyond measure, I think this record, I think actually both the pop record and the worship record, but especially the worship album, has the potential of telling the world who the real Jesus is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who don't know. They see something on television that sort of makes them want to throw up.
Right.
That religion and law and people claiming to be the Christ down in South America, or whatever, all the craziness that goes on. And people who've been hurt and have been abused, and they don't trust anybody.
Right.
But if they really knew the real father heart of God, if they really knew, just like that Reckless Love song says, if they really knew that to be true, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a game changer. And so you think, and I don't know if the worship record will help do that. I think it could be a catalyst in that. But
absolutely,
is it a catalyst in going? We read these scriptures, going, in the last days,
right?
I will pour out my Spirit.
Yeah,
and there'll be this great revival sweep across the land. I mean, that's what you hope, pray for.
Yeah,
that because we're living in crazy times. It's just nuts.
It's crazy right now.
But I just believe something. I believe something's happening, and I believe my worship album is a part of that. But there's a whole bunch of other people all around the world. We're all part of this whole thing that we just need to usher it in. But we can't do it if we're competitive. We can't do it if we're not humble. We've got to be unified, and we've got to have every race and every color, and we got to do it together.
Yes.
And then I think that happens. Watch out.
And I think what people don't realize, even with your first worship record, like, you're not writing all these songs. And I mean, most people, let's just keep it honest, most people write their songs so that they own the publishing and it's their music and it promotes them. And it can be great for some people. I'm not even knocking it. I'm just saying, you intentionally don't just say, now I'm going to go write me 10 songs for a worship record. You kind of find the gems and, redo them. Why is that? I always wanted to ask you that. I love it, but I'm just curious to know why.
Somebody else, I get an interview the other day. It was really interesting. I never heard anybody say that, going, you're the curator. You were the curator of, I'd never heard that. I guess I was, because above all. It's like everybody thinks I wrote above all. I didn't write above all.
Yeah.
Lenny and Paul wrote above all.
Yeah.
I don't do it because I don't think that I have the capacity. Maybe one day I will and I have a glorified body. But I don't have the capacity to write 10 King in My Hearts or Reckless Love.
Yeah.
And why would you just choose to put something on a record that's just okay?
Yeah.
So to me, my goal, and I didn't even know if I'd even write any songs on the record.
Yeah.
I didn't really care.
Yeah.
My hope is I would write 2 or 3, and I did.
Yeah.
But,
totally.
There's 11 songs with Light to You just having a reprise, but
Yeah.
there's 8 other songs on the record. It's not my songs.
Yeah.
But they're great songs.
They are great songs.
And-
I will say this: it's a record from track 1 to the end track. It's like a journey. Like it feels like a worship service. Like it wasn't just a recording. It's like it really, really, really flows together. And I was going to ask you, what's your favorite song, if you have one, on this album?
Well, I like Battles.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people. Yeah, it's so funny because, we released Surrounded. Fight My Battles. There's been very few, but I don't like this. You're singing the same thing over and over and over. But that thing really, to some degree, it's almost a disadvantage. It's just kind of by itself because it really belongs in the whole body of what happens that night. So I think when people hear the record, they're going to go,
Yes.
"Oh, I get it,"
Yes.
But I probably would choose Reckless Love.
Yeah.
Just because it's unique.
Yeah.
And it's different, and it's new territory.
Yeah, it really
new
is.
territory.
It's the bridge.
It's the bridge.
It's the bridge.
And it swings.
Yes.
And so I've never heard a worship song like Reckless Love. So that's why because I'm always gravitating to stuff going, that's cool.
Yeah.
You went and explored some new territory, and you didn't play it safe, and you just wrote something that's absolutely brand new. And so I'm up for brand new.
Yeah,
I like them all, but this
you can feel it on the coming after me part.
This is brand new.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that one is a great one. But then one song that I love is Light to You.
Yeah.
Even my darkness is light to you.
It's powerful.
That is really powerful because I think I was at Kyle's and I was looking at some of the video footage, the raw video thing that he had. Mm-hmm. And I saw someone in the congregation, just a guy.
Yeah, I
he
saw
was
him.
bawling.
Just bawling.
Dude, that just, whew, I got the chills. Like, I got the chills because
that's powerful.
I don't know the guy, but I knew what he was praying this.
Yeah.
Whether it's for somebody else, but just even my darkness is light to you. Like, I just saw, it was almost like you saw the hope being downloaded to his spirit.
Yeah.
And I really like that song. Now, did you write that song?
No, well, I co-wrote just the bridge.
Just the bridge.
With Thad Cockrell,
Yeah.
who's this great indie artist in Nashville.
Yeah.
And he writes these great songs, and he wrote that song. He played it for me one day, and I went, "Oh my goodness,
Dude.
bro!"
Yeah. I think that's going to be a sleeper big time.
Can I please cut that song?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, any parting words? I was going to ask you, my only question would be, I have 2 questions. One, what was your greatest moment in worship in your life? Is there anything that stands out? It could be at home. It could be on the road. It could be.
There's so many.
Nothing that stands out?
2 things that come into mind is playing Agnus Dei in Brazil for 50,000 kids on the beach, and they broke into Portuguese.
No way.
And I just cried the whole time.
I was about to say, you weeped.
I was undone, man. I was out.
Okay. And you said there's
and
another
I think
one.
the other thing was we were in South Africa, and we went into Healing Rain, and it started to rain, and there were
no way.
There were no clouds.
No.
And it rained, and then when we finished Healing Rain, it stopped raining, and we all just yeah, and we're all like, what just happened here? What just?
Come on, Jesus, give us a little bit more of that this year. Come on,
this is crazy. I mean, I just, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that was a sort of a moment. And then what? I have one more. This is the last one. It was November of 2015, and I'm in Japan. I'm in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. I was on this Asian tour. My dad had taken a turn for the worse. My dad went to heaven, and just real close to my dad. And I stayed for that one night instead of going home. If I was up to my dad, I wouldn't even come home.
Right.
Yeah. But I felt like I was supposed to stay and set the tone for these next 3 days with Franklin Graham. But we went into Agnus Dei at the end. And we're at this famous arena in Tokyo. And they just kept singing. They just kept singing it. And I didn't feel like I was supposed to end it, and I literally poured my heart, my whole. I mean, I left it all on stage. I don't think I'd ever poured so much out of me in one moment ever, maybe of my career of doing this. And I remember I walked off the stage, and they're still singing. I'm going to say in English. They're singing it in English, and I walked down this ramp, and all the Franklin's team and my wife Debbie's there, and everybody's weeping.
Wow.
And then I got up walked up the steps. I was sort of done. Mm-hmm. I literally walked up the steps and just went into my dressing room and just sat down and just went. And then they were still singing it 5 minutes later.
Really?
And I went, that's why I stayed one night in Tokyo. You just felt something. You felt like something broke, and then the next day I FaceTimed my dad, and I knew just like.
Now you keep saying these 3 places are all international.
They are.
Do you think that there is something different in traveling internationally?
Yes.
How they
yes
revere God versus America?
I don't know about revere God, but.
Or are they more hungry? I don't know. It just seems like it's different.
I think we. I think America is like, it's the most amazing country in the entire world. It's the idea was just look at how the whole thing was formed. It's just extraordinary.
Right.
There's no other place like it. I think it's the most dangerous place to live as well. I'm not talking about physically.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just talking about we have everything.
We have a lot.
We have everything. We can get a quick fix, make us feel good.
Yeah.
And you go to Romania, and you go to Denmark, and you go to these places where they're like,
they're desperate for them.
Desperate, and there's a whole other level of Shanda, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, Shanda Radatasha.
There's just a whole other level of expectancy.
Yeah.
And they're not spoiled. I'm not saying everybody in America is spoiled.
I know what you mean.
But there's this thing, and then you just you jump into it, and you go, oh my gosh, what? Hang on.
Yeah.
Just hang on.
Dude.
And that's why I think all my favorite God moments have happened in the other parts of the world.
Other parts of the world. Man, that's awesome. And then my other question is, personally, what's one area that you feel like you need to show up? And let me just explain it for those listening. Show up is being courageous and not being fearful. And instead of ignoring it, I'm just going to be present. I'm going to show up. So for me, it's my health. Like, instead of ignoring it, I'm showing up.
Yeah.
What's just one area in your life this year that you want to show up on?
Well, I was going to say present. You said that, but I just want to be present everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Just be present. Whether, you think you're going to be present at the next gig, or you're going to be present on Sunday morning, be present at Whole Foods, be present at the drugstore, be present with your grandkids, or just be in the moment and be fully engaged and fully present wherever you're at.
And you try to do that in your work too.
I do.
Like with relationships. You've never heard this conversation, but everybody that was singing that day, that was a part of your project, Surrounded, after it was over, this is what they told me. Calvin, I noticed that when other people walked into the room that weren't there, Michael would go and make sure that he greeted them and said hello. He knew who all was in the room. And when there was a new face, he knew there was a new face, and he would go and greet them. And I saw the same thing, and I was like, I can't believe you're saying this, because that's what I noticed. And I'm just playing it back to you, because is that the intentionality that you're trying to walk out in this season of making people feel welcomed and, lessening the bridge of, I'm Michael W. Smith, you're such and such. Is that kind of what you mean by also being present? I don't know. I just saw that. Or is that just how you normally are?
Everybody's important. Who am I to say I'm going to play on my thing of being a celebrity? I'm just
See,
I don't want to live there.
That's why. Okay, that's why everybody that you're watching, you're listening. I learned so much from you because it's not what he says, it's what he does. And we could cut the cameras right now. And the biggest thing that I'm learning is you're just great to watch. I really appreciate you. You're great to watch. I watch you. I'm not studying like your musical moves or your career moves, but I watch you. I watch how you treat people. I watch how humble you are. I watch you, and if I've never told you, I just really appreciate you, one, for being a part of this interview, and two, just for being an example. And that's, to me, at the end of the day, that's what worship is. It's a heart thing.
It is.
And that's that's why I wanted to talk to you today. It was just about the heart. I want people to be able to see a little bit of the inside, but to walk away and say, you know what? I personally want to walk away and be simple and create space, disappear. All those things that you've been saying today, I think a lot of people will resonate with this. And so I just want to thank you for coming out, you all the way to my little house and being a part of this. I appreciate it. So in closing, Michael, because the record is called Surrounded and the lyric is, it may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Can you just end us with a prayer for those that are listening, those that are watching? They're like, man, this is cool, but man, I'm struggling. I hear light, even my darkness is light to you. I hear all these songs, but they just feel like they're surrounded by circumstances or the enemy. Can you just give us a heartfelt closing prayer for the person that's listening to this driving in their car?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Lord, thank you, God, for this time. Thank you, Lord, for people who are watching or listening. And I pray, God, that you would just supernaturally just touch people where they're at.
Yes, Lord.
And that if we are all honest, nothing should ever be assumed by circumstance, God. This is so relational. You just love us. You just simply love us. Mm-hmm. And I pray that revelation would sink into every heart, and that this will be a pivotal moment of the light bulb goes off and people are freed up and people are set free on every level, and physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yes, Lord.
And that you would reign in every heart, and that all that you are, again, that listening and watching, that you'll know beyond a shadow of a doubt that your best days are ahead.
Yes, Lord.
In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, guys. Well, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you again, Michael. And I'll see you very soon.
All right, bro.
See ya.
Thank you.